Welcome everyone to Waldorf Astoria in Amsterdam, Netherlands. We have Vishy Anand, the 5-time world champion, playing with the white pieces against Shahriyar Mamedyarov. Vishy takes off his jacket, takes his chair, and it's going to be a very exciting match. Vishy and Mamedyarov both have very active style of playing chess, and it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top. Vishy adjusts all his pieces and waits for his opponent. In comes Shakh, and with a smile on his face, shakes hands with Vishy, takes his chair, and we are ready to go. Mamedyarov also gets his pieces in order, and there we have it. A shake hand and e4 by Anand. Shakh plays the symmetrical e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and we have the Ruy Lopez. Now a6 is the main move, also knight f6, but Mamedyarov goes for knight g e7. Not played so often at the highest level, but Vishy of course is well prepared. He goes knight out to c3, and Mamedyarov plays his knight to g6. Now d4 is one of the main lines here, but Anand takes his time. He wants to figure out what is the way he wants to continue here. He goes h4. Wow, this is not a surprise for Shakh for sure, because there have been many games that have continued this way. He goes knight to d4, attacking the bishop on b5. And the main move here is to bring the bishop back. That's exactly what Vishy Anand does. Now the threat is to push the knight away with pawn to h5, and then the e5 pawn would be hanging. So Mamedyarov has to decide how to meet it. He goes h5, which is a fine move. Now Vishy can play a simple move like d3 and has a fine position, but there's also the tempting move of knight g5, attacking the f7 pawn with his knight and the bishop, and it's not so easy to defend it. Maybe you have to go back knight e6, but that's already a bit of a concession, and Anand goes in. Knight g5 on the board, f7 under pressure. How to defend it? And Mamedyarov goes d5. d5 is such a typical Mamedyarov move, and Anand has to be very careful on how he deals with it. The right move is to take on d5 because it controls the e7 and f4 square. So in a line where bishop comes to g4, f3, and then I go knight h4, this is actually a good position for white. But Vishy makes a mistake by taking on d5 with the bishop. While it's the most natural move, you're looking at the f7 pawn with your bishop and knight. What really is a big problem is that after bishop g4, f3, knight takes h4, this position is already very difficult for black to play here, white to play here. It's not at all easy, and he goes bishop g4, which is the right move. Vishy now takes the pawn on f7. He's won another pawn. He's attacking the king and the knight. King d7, fantastic move played by Shakh. He's telling Vishy that now your queen is under attack, you have to protect it. Of course f3 is possible and is going to be played, which is what Anand does. But now there is a brilliant move, knight takes h4. What a move. With this, he's attacking g2 and also the g5 knight. You can see Shakh there has a spring in his step. He knows that he's creating something very special here against Vishy Anand, the man who's so well prepared in the opening. It's not at all easy to outwit him. Now d3 is a good move because the bishop defends the knight. How is black going to take advantage of this? Well, one of the best and simplest ways is to take the pawn on g2 with the knight, and that is what Mamedyarov can simply do. He can take there, but he's taking his time. He's being certain there. The other possible option is bishop e7, but somehow knight takes g2 is so strong, because after knight g2, king f1, there is the move knight f4. Yes, he takes the pawn. That is the move, and now Anand has to move his king away. wherever the king goes, like for example king f1 or king f2, which is the most normal move. If you go to d2, there's already queen g5 losing, so he goes king f1. Now you can jump back on f4, and what that move essentially achieves is blocking of this bishop to support the knight on g5, and that's a very, very important thing. Now imagine that in the opening when d5 was played, he had taken with his knight, then the f4 square would have been controlled. So those are some very small subtleties which Vishy had to be careful about. He wasn't, and now he's in trouble. The bishop is hanging here, but so is the knight, and there's no real way to defend the knight. He goes knight e2, and what Anand says is that if you take my knight, I'm going to take your bishop. So Mamedyarov now has a few options to decide from. One of them is to take the knight. The other is to maybe develop the bishop. And what is he going to do? Can he also think about taking this knight on g5, but then knight d4 is possible, and he does it the right way. He takes on e2, and now there's this check that is in the air, so you have to take that knight, and Anand takes with the queen. Queen takes on g5, fg4. Now you can't take hg because the rook on h8 is hanging, so a good idea could be f3, takes hg, attacking the queen and the rook. That would have been a nice way to continue, but Mamedyarov plays another very cool move. The bishop comes to c5. Now let's count the number of pawns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for white, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for black. So it's equal pawns. Now Vishy has actually won an extra pawn, but the main issue here is the white king, and with an active black queen, bishop, d4 played. Now why Vishy did not just simply move his bishop was that after f3, queen takes, there is rook f8, and you lose the queen. So that was one of the reasons why he went d4, and now bishop took the pawn, and Vishy must do something about his bishop there. He goes back bishop b3, and now you can simply go again f3. It looks very, very strong here, and Mamedyarov plays it. He plays f3. Notice if you take here again, you lose the queen, rook f8. So that's the reason why he plays queen h2, attacking the pawn on c7. And while you may want to hurry up in this position, it also pays to be patient, and that's what Mamedyarov is doing. He wants to get his bishop back to b6 to defend the pawn on c7 from the white queen. Goes queen h3. A check is threatened here, which would be very powerful, but Mamedyarov can actually not only defend against this check but also activate one of his pieces. Rook h6, fantastic move played by Shahriyar. Now e6 is controlled with his rook, and later on the rook can join the battle. Rook d1 played. Anand wants to give a check on d7, and he brings the rook in. With more and more pieces getting traded, the rook on h1 is anyway out of the game. Now c3 played. There's a very nice little mate here, because after queen b5, c4, queen takes, bishop takes, rook d1 is a mate. But Mamedyarov actually plays here rook takes, bishop takes, queen d2, and now many threats. Queen takes is hanging, and if queen f3, there is rook f6. Vishy Anand resigns. What a brilliant win by Mamedyarov.